Good afternoon and welcome to the February 14th, 2012 Lawrence City Commission meeting. First up on our agenda is the consent agenda. All matters listed on consent are considered under one motion and enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion of those items. If discussion is desired, that item will need to be pulled from consent to be considered separately. Is there an item on consent that a member of the commission would like considered separately?
Mayor, item number 11 and number 12 that deals with the contracts for the conceptual design and site selection service from Gould Evans, and also the fundraiser campaign feasibility study.
Other than 11 and 12, is there anything else on consent? Is there an item on consent other than 11 and 12 that a member of the public would like considered separately? Hearing none, then need to, with the exception of items 11 and 12 and the addition of payroll in the amount of $1,798,748.03 and 175 claims to vendors totaling $3,977,659.40. Is there a motion to accept consent?
Second. Well,
yeah.
Second.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Shum, seconded by Commissioner Amix. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Items, tackle number 11 is to execute a contract with Gould Evans for conceptual design, construction, and selection services for a proposed Lawrence Activity and Wellness Center.
Mayor, just real quick, I mean, my vote on these items in the past has been one that I have not been supported because of the timing of this issue coming forward, whether or not now is the time financially to get into this, and I'm just going to remain consistent with my vote. We've already had the discussion. So.
Very good. Any other commission?
Mayor, I'd like to just add a comment. Had some conversations this week with some private individuals interested in potentially building a similar type facility using private dollars, and I am in favor of moving forward with keeping the process going for either a city or a private recreation center. But in light of those conversations, I would request that if we do sign these or do agree to pass these agreements, that we ask the city manager to hold off on signing them or executing them for a week.
Be prudent.
I also have been in contact with a citizen or two that have indicated probably a similar interest, and they would like a week or so to see if there's some consolidation of their ideas and plans, etc. So be it that this is a rather expensive opportunity for us, I would want to wait and see if maybe something could happen along those lines where there'd be a lot more private dollars invested in this program instead of tax dollars. I think it's prudent to move it ahead, but not charge ourselves with a final action at this point. Wait and see what happens.
You think a week's enough time to pull something together? Maybe 2 weeks would be?
I would defer to city
Do
manager's
you have an opinion on that?
Well, I know that we're going to try and have a meeting sometime next week. I think we can do that. It might be good to put it back on an agenda in case there's any commission discussion as well. I mean, I think I don't know that we'll be able to get everything nailed down in a week. We could wait 2 weeks and then have a report back from me after I've talked with commissioners and these other sources, and understand that we would then proceed or not proceed based upon that conversation in that direction.
Mayor, seems to me like it may be more prudent to table this for 2 weeks as opposed to approve it, and then if we find out that some other format would be better for us, then we have to go through the process of rescinding the vote. So, I mean, that would be one thought, to keep it as clean as possible, but just to for 2 weeks.
I think we can just put it on the regular agenda 2 weeks from tonight, and
Just defer it.
and have that conversation, and we'll be ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's important that we determine whether or not there's support for this, because I think that's part of the process of evaluating what might come about from a private partnership. But if there's not support, then those comments or those conversations might not be as productive. So I think my desire in voting on this was to at least find some sort of support, whether or not we had a majority, and then also, keep the ball moving forward. And this is fine to table it, but I also think that it would be good. I think it's important for anyone who might be considering serious conversations to know whether or not there's commission support for this item. That was the only reason I wanted to consider discussing this at the same time.
Right, to have, even though it might not come to pass as we're seeing it here, the vote is more of a, this is what we want to see, sort of a.
Right, because I think any future investment's not going to come without some city investment, I'm sure, whether it be infrastructure or some sort of utility. And I think if there's not a majority of commissioners willing to spend that money, even on a smaller level, I think this might direct people in whether or not we're serious about moving forward with the rec center here in town, and the city's desire to participate in that at whatever level that is. And so that was the only reason I wanted to maybe get a concurrence, and then if it's not clean enough, then I don't want to muddy the waters. But I think support would be a good thing for whatever project move forward.
Sure.
I think that's a good point. You make a good point. You're sending a green light signal at this point that we want to move ahead forward to the people who are interested in this, and I concur that's a good thing to do. So obviously we can undo anything we do, and so, or change it, modify it, so I'm fine with that position too.
That was my only thinking about it.
It may or may not happen, an alternate form of this may or may not happen, but we've talked about this, the form that we have in front of us moving forward, and if we can't get something in the private, then we'll go ahead and move forward, and that may well give a push to those private groups to come together in a quick fashion here, and
Exactly.
I think that's a good thing as well. To that end, then, if one was going to make sure that we didn't actually execute until we revisit this in 2 weeks' time, how would?
I think what you could do is you could have a motion to defer these items until your meeting on February the 28th, endorsing the direction that we're proceeding, but asking staff to work with commissioners and other interested parties to explore this recent discussion on private work.
You feel that's strong enough?
Yeah, I
Endorsing.
think, any forward progress is.
Any vote.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's important, because if we don't have a majority, then I think the conversation will have a different
That's a
tone.
whole different conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other commission discussion?
What do you think?
Well, I think that one of the things that we have is that I feel like I'm being caught in the middle here. I've heard of, the comments that have been made over recent days about the potential private facility that may come forward, and if there is interest that way. And I think, as the comments that I had earlier was, during the first night that we talked about this as a commission had solely to do with, do we have to own the facility? And as the city manager pointed out, no. It would be, there could be an arrangement if it met the needs that we had laid out in the community. So, that's fine. I think at this point I'm hesitant about, giving a direction until we see something come forward. I still, have that concern, so we'll look and see. But I guess I'm not ready at this point to go ahead and proceed with that until I actually see something.
Is there public comment on this item? Action. Okay.
Quickly, I'm Jana Dawson with the Advisory Board for Parks and Rec, and we did have our regular monthly meeting today, and just wanted to avail ourselves to any further discussions and make sure you're aware that we're available in the next couple of weeks to answer any questions you might have. Obviously, our concern would be if we go with a private-public partnership. Anytime you have the opportunity to bring private funds in, that's a good thing to help offset some of those costs. But we would certainly want to be sure that any private facility would be available to meet the needs of Parks and Recreation programming that we're trying to address with this project in the first place.
Absolutely, yeah, we hope to involve the board there, and no matter which direction that we would go, and that would be, I think, critical for
Very
the
good.
success of it.
Thank you.
Other public comment on this item? Back to the commission, any other comments on this, or? Entertain then a motion to defer for 2 weeks, providing, sorry, how did you put that?
Endorsing it?
Endorsing the
Well, I think
direction in
you're
which
you're
we're.
endorsing the direction that is set forth, but asking staff and other stakeholders, including, it's a good point from Jana, including the advisory board members and obviously commissioners that are interested in this, to further explore the private options.
So moved.
Very good. Motion made by Commissioner Carter.
That's with the proviso that it's going to be back on our regular agenda.
Regular agenda 2 weeks from this evening, yeah, on the 28th.
Very
Yes,
good.
sir, if that's what your direction is.
Yes,
Yes.
that's understanding there of that. Motion still stands.
Right.
Motion made by Commissioner Carter, seconded by Vice Mayor Shum. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Amick in dissension. All right, item number 12 of consent is on a similar vein here. This is regarding fundraising feasibility campaign. I'm assuming that we'd like to go identical direction there. Any other questions or comments from the commission? Public comment on that? Other identical comments? Very good. Then consider a motion to the same effect to defer for 2 weeks.
Moved.
Actually, that's probably sufficient on this one.
Moved.
Mo-
I don't know if he moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Carter, I think, seconded by Vice Mayor Shum. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Commissioner Amick's in dissension again. City Manager's report, Dave.
Mayor, members of the commission, good evening. Just a few items to hit in this week's report. We're already starting off with our monthly building permit information, and you see the January report. I appreciate the commissioners who had the opportunity to attend the recent academy graduation, and in addition to swearing in 10 new officers, we also had a presentation to a couple of outstanding officers for life-saving awards, and then also for some citizens as well. I just want to make sure that you all had a chance to see that information. Appreciate the media attention to it as well. Information about LED traffic signals. We've been making slow progress on this over the years, and when we were talking about it at staff level about a year ago, we said, let's just go ahead and punch it out. So we had probably about 30–40% of the traffic signals that still needed the LED traffic signals. We went ahead and did that over the past few months, made it a staff priority, made it a funding priority in our budgets. And you see the information there as to what we think we're going to be saving in regards to energy use. Not only is that a dollar savings in regards to that, I'm also like to point out that when we have the signals with battery backup, when we've had the lights go out in town, those LED lights stay on longer too. So I think it's a great service improvement for the community. Speaking of great service, we've gone in to make sure that you saw the Building Safety Division's report from last year. You see that we've got a good metric in regards to our turnaround time for building permits on residential and commercial. In building permits, probably the most important thing is getting a response back to the applicant, and you see what we're striving to do is get that back in a timely fashion. There's obviously areas for improvement in that area. We're continuing to look at that, but we're measuring that as a way to show performance in that area. And then finally, Scott's department also put together a home improvement program brochure. So that's a quick run through a number of the items in this week's report.
The $1,600 in savings on the LED versus the incandescent traffic lights, is that just in electricity, or is have you factored in the cost for needing to change the bulbs less often?
We know that we're going to have the latter. I think this is just the electricity cost. We
Just the
haven't really
electricity.
measured that's a very good point, Mayor. I mean, in addition to,
Be probably greater than that.
probably would be. This is just the electricity cost, that's my understanding. But obviously, if we're not changing,
Yeah.
if we're not changing the bulbs,
Guys
right,
gotta
it's the
get
cost
up.
of the bulb. But if we're not changing it, we've got an opportunity for those people to be doing other things elsewhere in the community.
Great. Questions, comments on city manager's report? Thank you, Dave.
Welcome.
On to the regular agenda, 1900 West 31st Street. Scott?
Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. Scott McCullough with the Planning Office, presenting agenda items 1A through C, which is a project known as Aspen Heights. We'll be looking at zoning, preliminary plating, and special use permit. It's a rezoning request to go from RS 10 to RM 12 on just over 40 acres. It's accompanying preliminary plat, so acceptance of easements and rights-of-way dedications, and a special use permit to allow a detached dwelling structure in the RM district. This is the subject property located here along 31st Street and Osdale Road and Iowa Street in this location. RS7 and RM12 zoning exists to the north in residential uses and open space uses. This is a vacant, unincorporated area at this location. Apartment and commercial uses exist here to the south, and commercial uses primarily to the west. Again, just an aerial depicting all of those surrounding uses and the current use of the subject property, which is a mobile home park. This places the property in the context of its square mile section of land here of Iowa 23rd, Louisiana, and 31st Street. The subject property is right here. Indian Hills neighborhood is to the east and northeast. And this is not in a specific neighborhood association, but is in the revised Southern Development Plan, which we'll get to in just a moment. This also reflects a little bit of the transportation issues in that we've got 27th Street as an east-west route, and of course 31st and 23rd, but there's virtually no north-south access here except for Louisiana and Iowa. And the Naismith Channel actually, I think, is contributing to part of the reasons why there isn't a lot of north-south access in this area. The site is adjacent to some natural features and in fact does have a little bit of floodplain on it. There's a bike path here that we'll look at in a moment that the project provides a link to. In terms of density, the zoning district allows 12 dwelling units per acre. This actually is 8.5 dwelling units per acre for a total here in terms of bedroom and unit count, 304 units and a total of 938 total bedrooms for this development. We're providing a little bit of information to you on existing mobile home parks in the community. This is the subject site. The other sites here do have vacancies, and you've had a recent letter from the applicant noting that there are vacancies in these other parks and that the applicant is providing relocation expenses and effort to get those who want to relocate to another park into some of these vacancies. This is the revised Southern Development Area Plan. This is the subject property. It is designated for medium-density residential uses, of which this project complies. And so on the zoning request, we have recommended approval, and the Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval. Turning the attention to the plat, it's a one-lot plat dedicating right-of-way along 31st Street and Osdale Road, extending actually Osdale Road right-of-way to accommodate a cul-de-sac at this location. There's also an access point at this location. That's emergency access. That is not open to the public or the residents here. That's gated for emergency use by the fire department only. Again, some of the site constraints include the floodplain, which will go into Tract A. There's a gas easement at this location and pedestrian easements provided to provide a nice north-south link for bike and pedestrian. Per code, 150 feet of right-of-way, total right-of-way, is required on a principal arterial road. The applicant requested and received a variance from this requirement. They actually exceed the right-of-way standard, but it's in a combination of right-of-way and easement, utility and pedestrian easement, and so the variance was granted because 75 feet, half width is required, and 80 feet is actually provided. Whether Osdale should be connected in this location was discussed at the Planning Commission, especially in light of no north-south connection in this section of land between Iowa and Louisiana Street. Connection would be challenging, given the offset here of Osdale to the north and south, and also would present some new traffic issues to an established neighborhood with what, in staff's opinion, would amount to very little appreciable difference in traffic on the other arterial roads in the area. Staff and Planning Commission the Planning Commission approved the plat and the variance on a vote of 6-1, and you're being asked to approve the dedication of easements and rights-of-way for it. Turning our attention to the special use permit, the reason there's a special use permit involved here, not just an administrative site plan, is that per our development code, detached dwelling structure type requires a special use permit in the RM12 zoning district. So essentially, this is a student housing, multi-dwelling apartment type land use with what we have considered unique structure types in they're using single-family type homes and duplexes and not your larger scale multi-dwelling type structures. We've talked a little bit about the density and such. We've talked a little bit about the access points. There's access provided on 31st Street, on Osdale and the cul-de-sac, and again, emergency access to the north. These are renderings depicting the housing product off the applicant's website. Again, just showing what a duplex is likely to look like in a detached dwelling. This slide reflects some of the community amenities of the project, some open space, sport court, pool, and clubhouse here. The project does a very good job of providing bike ped access through the development over to the Naismith linear park system. This is actually an off-site improvement that will be made by the applicant to the system, which then provides access to the north. Forgive my cute animation here. One of the issues identified through the process is cut-through traffic through Home Depot, Best Buy, and other properties there as it heads to the frontage road of Iowa Street into this intersection. This has been discussed that this increase in cut-through traffic is problematic for the private parking lots and the intersection of the frontage road and Iowa Street, which is recognized as a difficult intersection during certain peak hours of the day. As proposed, there is an access point again to Osdale Road from the development, and this is a full access driveway right now. Osdale is a public right-of-way. This is a driveway to the Home Depot, Best Buy, other lots here. And so we have worked a little bit since Planning Commission meeting to discover what is possible here. This is a plan produced by Land Plan, the applicant's engineering firm. And Aspen Heights is willing to participate in reducing the potential for cut-through traffic. This depicts a feasible intersection improvement to discourage the southbound vehicles from entering the Home Depot driveway by reconfiguring the curb line here through signs that are meant to discourage the right-hand turns. It's important to note, though, that it won't completely stop the aggressive drivers that really want to get to the site. We did provide to the Commission a memo this afternoon and posted the memo late in the day, advising the Commission that we have spoken to the Home Depot store manager, who confirmed that there are issues even today with cut-through traffic, and the manager supports this modification of really what essentially is their intersection with Osdale Road. However, we haven't yet spoken with the owner, Home Depot's a tenant at the property, at the site. So we'd like to speak to the owner and give them an ability to weigh in on this. So with this in mind, we have proposed a condition that the applicant shall, at their expense and prior to occupancy, install curbing and signs within the city right-of-way at the driveway entrance of Home Depot site as it intersects with Osdale in a manner substantially similar to the example that I just provided to you. City shall notify the owner of Home Depot of the planned right-of-way modifications, and owner shall have the right to appeal the design to the city commission. I do want to note that just before this meeting, we had been talking out in the hallway about perhaps another sign located here that would prevent left-hand turn movement up into the project, as the theory being that if you're able to make that left-hand turn, you might also want to make the right-hand turn, and if it's depicted as no access there, that may be a better traffic calming mechanism. The Planning Commission did recommend unanimous approval to the City Commission with a list of conditions, of which we would add the last condition if accepted by the Commission. So to summarize all of the applications, the zoning, the preliminary plat, and the SUP, they're all recommended to you for approval, some with conditions, and with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Scott. Questions?
Scott, back, you had said a variance was granted on the right-of-way and the easement. Why was that 80 feet versus 75?
Yes, sir. Just able to show you here. On a principal arterial road, which 31st Street is, there's a total right-of-way width of 150 feet required, so that when the exchange apartments, for example, came in, we break that up into half widths. So 75 feet on the north side, 75 feet on the south side. The applicant, in order to address the gas line easement and setbacks here, presented to us a variance application that took advantage of a combination of right-of-way and easement, utility and pedestrian easement, to fit the sidewalks and the street trees and all the appropriate street elements into it, which actually provided 80 feet of public space and not just the 75. So technically needed the variance because it wasn't all right-of-way. It was a combination of right-of-way and pedestrian and utility easement that serves the public good.
And back to the additional item that will be placed on as a condition to the SUP, the new language for the the owner of the Home Depot site. That's all public right-of-way. I mean, we can do this, order this to be done.
Right. Right.
And isn't there already an appeal process that somebody can go through on a decision that we would make?
No, and you're right, it's a good point, Commissioner Amix. It's the work we're talking about is within the public right-of-way, and so the city controls it, if you will. By practice, though, it is very typical for us to have conversations with the adjacent owner if we're trying to modify their driveway entrance.
Okay.
So we want to employ our typical method of completing this kind of modification in the right-of-way.
Okay, so the only group that hasn't been at the table and seen all of this is the actual owner of the property, and that's not Home Depot.
They have received the notice of this, so they have received formal notice. We have not had any conversations, and this is coming to us kind of late in the process. So if they did attempt to plug in early, they would have seen a design that didn't touch their driveway entrance.
Okay. Go ahead.
Scott, can you point out where all the conditions are at? I've been trying to find those, and
The conditions on the special use permit would be in the, either on the staff report under item C. They're outlined here on this slide. The Planning Commission actually added G, which is just a provision to show and note the minimum number of required accessible parking spaces, and the applicant accepted that condition.
so they're going to be building, you mentioned there was a drainage way where Osdale would connect, is that?
There is, well, this is floodplain,
Right.
and the Naismith Channel comes in this way. And there actually will be, so that's a good point I didn't touch upon, that there will be storm drainage improvements along this property line getting to
Right.
the channel.
So it's hard to read the pedestrian access map. It's kind of zoomed. When you try to read it, I think the resolution's not high enough, but that one right there on our documents. The blue path, is it indicating that it's going to be a sidewalk or a pedestrian way that's going to cross over that to connect up to Osdale? So there is some pedestrian or bicycle connectivity up there? Right there?
Right here, okay, right. And perhaps the applicant can confirm, as I understand it, this is a pedestrian access point with pedestrian gate, no vehicular gate, but some sort of pedestrian through that would allow access to the street network here, also access here to the rec path.
So could you get a bike through there then?
I believe that's the intent of it. Yeah,
So the intent is, even though there's going to be a drainage feature, there's going to be an access road, an emergency access road for public safety.
right.
So there'll have to be a road, which
Right.
means they'll have a culvert or
Have some
something
drainage,
across the
right.
drainage ditch, and so people can walk or ride their bike into the neighborhood and up to 27th Street.
Yes.
Okay.
Along with what Commissioner Dever just asked, is the emergency access, it's at Ridge Court, isn't it? It's not going to be at Osdale.
It is going to be at Osdale coming south into the project.
So is that, I must have missed,
Yeah, lanes up.
Right here.
okay.
Goes in there.
I can maybe show you on the aerial. Well, not very good, but Osdale. Is it that? That one, yep.
Scottsdale.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions?
Tony reminded me that we probably ought to disclose ex parte contacts. I know a number of you have met with the applicant and met with other property owners. I don't know if there's any new information that you all have to disclose that isn't now part of the record. We've now got the bulb out on Osdale, and I don't know if there's any new information that needs to be disclosed.
I've met with the applicant and had various emails which are in the public record. None of the meetings and encounters that I've had adds anything substantial to the public record that we have before us.
I had a meeting with the applicant, and I had a meeting with an owner of commercial property that's interested in the remediation of the right-hand turn in front of the, other than that, it's been a horribly boring rezoning, probably one of the most boring ones I've ever suffered through, so
I haven't.
no other comment.
We could stir something up here if you want.
Yeah. I had a brief discussion with the applicant's attorney. I did not meet with them, but I did meet with Dale Willie about the access on the Osdale, southern Osdale extension bulb out, and nothing we talked about is any different than we talked about in the meeting today.
I had contact with the applicant and the applicant's attorney, Mr. Willie, and his partner at Dale Willie Pontiac, and it had to do solely with the bulb out on South Osdale there, and you know, his feelings about the vehicular traffic through that commercial side. It's all information that we have before us tonight.
Same here, a couple of emails with Dale Willie, all of which are covered here. I did meet with the applicant and his attorney, and I think the only thing that I haven't heard in here yet that we covered, and I'll bring it up so perhaps it could be covered in the presentation, is we talked about bus and perhaps even shuttle service, and he had indicated that if the bus service weren't adequate, or possibly a bus could come down into that turnabout, it's big enough to actually add a bus stop right there. There's one fairly nearby. And if not, if there was a need, that they were willing to do a shuttle as well. So,
To the bus stop on the other side of the street?
It's across the street, isn't it?
shuttle actually would be to campus
Oh,
or
okay.
something. But I thought, you know, we might want to just fill the bus up.
In case maybe we no longer had that bus stop, I would assume. Come on up to the microphone. Thank you.
Charlie Vatterott, Executive Vice President Development for Aspen Heights. It will come, whether or not there's a shuttle, will just come down to customer service. You know, if the bus system, we'd love to integrate with the bus system that's there. There's a stop next to the connection south of 31st. If for some reason our clients weren't happy with that bus service, the idea would be to shuttle directly to campus from our location. So.
Other questions? Comments? Or anything that you need to add here this evening?
Sure, we have a short presentation.
Mayor and Commissioners, my name is Brian Sturm, and I am a landscape architect at Land Plan Engineering, and I'm here tonight to represent the applicant on this project. You know, city staff has done a great job at you know, handling and explaining a lot of the details of this project in terms of its applications. I want to go through those again real briefly, but also kind of emphasize how Aspen Heights is going to be a great addition to the city and also a great neighbor to those folks living and doing business in that part of Lawrence. This is just another picture of the existing site today. This is the same view here with Aspen Heights filled in. One reason I find in working with this client that I can state that Aspen Heights is going to be a great neighbor is they build neighborhoods, and they're intent on creating atmospheres, you know, places for people to live that are above average. They have a unique product that they're building here. It's not your typical student housing development where you often see apartments. Their product is centered around the home. They've found in ample research and in projects built in multiple other college towns in America that students today want something similar to where they grew up, which is a detached single-family house quite often. So they've designed their project around the home. You know, buildings that have bedrooms that share common living spaces, kitchens, you know, living rooms, etc. You know, combining that with a neighborhood style, you know, streets, sidewalks, street trees, and architecture similar to what we see in a lot of different neighborhoods here in Lawrence, Centennial neighborhood or Old West Lawrence. And they add to that amenities that a lot of college students expect today in their living environments. They've developed a product that's been pretty successful. And they bring to Lawrence not just a development that's a development strategy that's experienced and grounded in projects here in the States, but an ethic that also takes a world view into hand. They have a project, Aspen Heights in Africa, that donates proceeds from every lease signed in America to furthering housing and education projects in Africa. So they're a company that thinks and acts globally, and I think there are a number of different ways where they're going to bring that ethic locally here to Lawrence as well in this project. For starters, the rezoning request is one that falls in line with several different community guide documents here in Lawrence. And we had the fortune of working with Aspen Heights before they even committed to this piece of property. We worked at several different pieces of land in Lawrence. This one was by far the best, and the project was designed to comply with Horizon 2020 and the Southern Redevelopment Plan. It's as well as compliance with the development code and making sure that rezoning to RM12 was the right choice. It's going to be certainly a little bit below RM12, but it still fits in that medium density residential category that we're shooting for here. The preliminary plat, a document that lays out a whole lot of different public improvements, as well as a lot structure, illustrates a number of ways in which Aspen Heights is doing its part to integrate into this neighborhood and make some improvements that'll be felt beyond its lot borders. There are a handful of traffic improvements being made, including turn lanes on 31st Street, as well as this extension of Osdahl Road. And as Charlie Vatterott with Aspen Heights already mentioned, that will facilitate, if possible, the a bus stop, whether it's one of KU's routes or the city's routes. We designed that cul-de-sac to provide a turnaround space not just for emergency vehicles but also for public transportation. And going beyond just the vehicular transportation aspect of this project, Aspen Heights will make a pretty significant addition to the city's bikeway system in this part of town. Currently, there is a shared use path on the north side of 31st Street. It dead ends at the existing Gaslight Village driveway. This project will comply with Transportation 2030 by adding a connection from 31st Street into the Naismith Valley Parkway. All told, it'll add over 3,000 linear feet of shared use path to the city's network. Sanitary sewer is another area where this project is going to make a significant impact on this part of Lawrence. Today, there are existing sanitary sewer lines that obviously serve properties out there. Gaslight Village, however, is entirely a private network. When Aspen Heights is installed, there will be obviously a great deal of public sanitary sewer line put into there, which will certainly help the system in reducing infiltration. All told, over 2 miles of public sanitary sewer will be installed. Additionally, the project will help eliminate a problem that's existed for decades, wherein an existing sanitary sewer line actually passes underneath a home. Aspen Heights will be able to tie into the existing system in this location over here, thereby allowing the city to vacate the line that currently passes underneath that home right there. Scott touched on the floodplain issue. We've been able to, in developing this project, cordon off almost all of the floodplain that rests on this land. There are little pieces of it that eke out of that Tract A. Those will also be included within detention or drainage or utility easements. And beyond that tract is reserved as a drainage easement. It's floodplain, and floodplain is where that's where all of the water in this portion of Lawrence eventually ends up. Aspen Heights also makes significant improvements to existing stormwater features on site. There are 2 drainage channels that pass through there, one straight through the middle that carries rainwater detention from Home Depot towards the floodplain. There's another drainage channel on the north side of the site that carries a great deal of stormwater from the Indian Hills neighborhood and even commercial properties on Iowa. Both those will be improved to handle capacity beyond what they hold today, and it'll help reduce a lot of flooding that is seen in that neighborhood there north of the project. The special use permit site plan is a detailed document. It spells out a lot of the way this project will be developed. A couple areas that we think are key in helping and bringing along development in this part of town. One would be access. We've touched on this. Aspen Heights is going to have 2 full access points that its residents will use. There's going to be this 3rd access point on the north side of the site on the existing Osdahl Road dead end that we're going to create specifically for emergency vehicles. There will be a paved roadway there that will continue from the existing Osdahl Road south into the project, but there'll be a gate there and it'll be closed. It won't be accessible to residents. It'll have an Opticom receiver built into it so that if need be, emergency vehicles will be able to access it. Otherwise, that's the only time that vehicular gate will be open. There will be a number of additional access points for pedestrians or cyclists. Obviously, one down at 31st Street, There'll be another one here on the extension of Osdall. That'll be part of the shared use path that courses through here, and it'll exit or enter, depending on your orientation, up here, and take folks to or from the Naismith Valley Parkway. And then there will be another access point here that will allow pedestrians or cyclists to enter the development from, or exit the development there at Osdall Road. Both those access points, just to be clear, on the north, they will cross this drainage improvement. And the drainage and the stormwater improvements along that north side include a combination of both pipe and open channel features. But regardless, those access points won't interfere with the stormwater and vice versa. Green space is the other consideration we want to point out in this plan. Aspen Heights is making an investment beyond what's required in street trees. They'll obviously have the required amount of street trees along 31st Street and their frontage on Osdall. They're also going to add street trees on the west side of Osdall that'll help shade the shared use path over there. All told, they're adding 10 street trees beyond what the code requires there. They're including buffer yards where required on the north side against single-family residential, along the west side and southwest side against the commercial. And they're even taking measures to preserve an existing hedgerow of trees on the east side where they border Bruce and Joan Snodgrass's property. There's a great deal of interior parking lot landscape with the project. We know there's a lot of surface parking involved with a project such as this, and we did our best to incorporate pockets of planters that would have trees to shade and sort of mitigate some of that impervious surface. We're required, based on the amount of parking provided, Aspen Heights is to provide a little over 48,000 square feet of interior parking lot landscaping. We've been able to find a way to get over just shy of 73,000 square feet of interior parking lot landscaping. So you have, approaching 2 acres of green space just in all those pockets of planters. And overall, the project, it has a great deal of green space. The zoning classification requires them to provide no less than 25% pervious coverage. They'll be providing slightly over half of the development as pervious coverage. And those really cover the bases I wanted to speak of. Aspen Heights is prepared to accept all conditions attached to the approvals. We would request an additional condition be added to rezoning approval, that being rezoning approval being conditioned upon approval of a final plat. I don't know what your take on that is. Scott?
Scott?
We used to practice that a little bit and had some concern for that. I think these are going to be fairly piggybacked on top of each other, so I think if it gets to the point where we're out past 6 months on that, we don't see the final plat coming in, we may want to present that back to the commission, but I think we're accepting of that issue.
Very good. Question for the applicant?
I have 2.
Can
So are you trying to tie into the existing road network, the road bed, the infrastructure that's there? It looks like the plat's pretty similar to what's there now. Can you just briefly describe that? And also, there's a lot of trees on this property that are, are decent age and size. What are your plans on trying to preserve the existing vegetation and working that into your plat?
Sure. So when you say what portions of the existing roadbed are we trying to preserve or tie into?
Yeah, it
you mean
looks
the
like-
existing
Yeah.
existing roadbed in Gaslight
Exactly.
Village
Instead
today?
of hauling in, all new materials, are you going to try
right.
and conserve resources there, or what?
The goal is to conserve as many resources as we can in terms of, I'd say on both those, in terms of pavement and existing trees. It's at this point in our conceptual design, it's impossible to commit simply because we haven't done finished grading. When you look at what areas are going to be raised versus what areas are going to be sunk, until you really know, it's hard to say, oh, this stretch of road will work, this stretch of road won't. Same with trees. There are a number of mature trees on site, and while the plan proposes adding actually more trees than exist there today, Aspen Heights recognizes that mature trees, add to the quality of life. If at the point we find that trees in the plan can be saved, our goal would certainly be to follow all the procedures that I know Parks and Rec and the city code lay out for preserving existing trees, what with fences at the drip line, et cetera.
So was the focus to try and build into the existing layout, or because it seems very similar again, obviously, have they done this before, and is this kind of resource?
I understand what you're saying, and you can look at the grid structure on both, and they overlap in places. But the goal is to ultimately provide, roads that meet the city's development code.
Absolutely.
And I've been out there a number of times to know you got a mix of concrete and asphalt that are who knows how old. It's unlikely that we would save any of the pavement as it stands
Sure.
today out there.
But trying to, with the existing network, laying it out the way you have, it seems like there's more opportunity to save existing features, both natural and then also the subgrade and base and all that. The additional amount of materials that would be required to build would be diminished, and then also you could try and work with some of the existing vegetation that's there too. I don't know if that's possible or not, but it sure looks like you've platted it such.
Sure. I'd say it's possible and something that we're going to be looking at. For instance, with the roadbed, depending on the contractor, we've worked on projects where, someone comes in and they grind up that existing pavement and it ends up being used as subgrade material. Those are all possibilities for this development.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Public comment? Public comment? Back to the commission then. Shoot.
I just want to make sure that concerned, I've read the staff notes from the planning commission that the people that are there that are going to be leaving are going to be taken care of in terms of being assisted in their relocation. And I've read, but I'd certainly like to hear that presented at this public body tonight.
Anybody who can?
Yeah, I can do that. My name's Tom Horner. I'm with the Property Gaslight Village, the management company MHP Management. Gaslight's a 238-unit park. Right now, we have about 125 homes sitting out there. And that's physical homes, so they may or may not be occupied. Of the 125 homes that are sitting out there today, there's probably 8 of those that are not occupied. 4 of them are abandoned and will need to be removed by us. Some of the homes get in a state of disrepair, and we're left with no alternative but to basically load them up into a roll-off container and take them out to the landfill. So that gets you down to 121. We have another 4 that are under contract, people who've bought those homes and are removing them and taking them somewhere else, either to private property or to another community. In addition, there's about 7 other homes sitting out there, people who owe 6 months rent or more. In those cases, what typically happens, if the people get too far behind, these tend to be homes that, again, are in a pretty state of disrepair, and they abandon those homes and just leave them there, and then we have to deal with that situation. The Lawrence market, if you exclude Gaslight, includes just a little bit over 1,000 mobile home lots. Today, the number of vacant lots is around a little over 200, so 20%, which is, well more than enough to accommodate the 100. If everybody there that is left wants to move, you're talking about 110 to fill 200 lots. So there's plenty of lots available. Of the lots that are available, there's one community that's in South Lawrence that has approximately 25 vacancies. And then there's 2 communities in East Lawrence that have 110 and 115 vacancies. And then the other communities are all up in North Lawrence, and they make up the remaining balance to get you to the number of vacancies in Lawrence. What our plan has been all along was we tried to stay ahead of this. We knew that this was coming down the pipe. We had an offer to buy the property. So we started communicating with the residents by putting information in our monthly newsletter that goes to our residents. In addition, we started sending letters on a as-needed basis. Whenever we had new information, we would send letters to the residents to try to inform them, to keep them informed about this. As you can imagine, one of the things that we battle in a community like this is the misinformation that people get, the rumors, whether it's from the media or, you know, some neighbor just going around telling stories that just isn't true. The day they saw survey crews walking through there, you know, shooting their lasers and stuff, people started getting a little bit antsy. So we tried to keep them informed and tell them what was going on, and to try to, you know, keep them at peace a little bit. The other thing that we've done is we've started having individual meetings with the residents, actually going door to door and talking to people and talking to them about what their needs were. You know, what do they want? Do they want to relocate? Do they want to move to an alternative type of housing? We're not going to be, we can't assume to know what these people want or don't want. It really requires a face-to-face meeting. That's what we did last time when the Home Depot deal came in. We literally met with every single resident. We went to every single person's door and talked to them and just found out what their needs were. For some people, it was an opportunity to get out from underneath their house, and we ended up buying their homes. That's what they wanted. They wanted a one-time financial hit to sell their house. So we've been doing that. We have not completed those meetings because the time frame is such that, you know, there's a risk of getting too far ahead on that too. You know, people's needs today might be different in 5 or 6 months. What's happening right now, some of the other communities have come in and have started relocating our residents because of the knowledge that this was going on, and they have paid for those moves. There have been people whose moves, they've been relocated to Easy Living and Harper Woods, and their moves were paid for. So there are other property owners that are paying to relocate people. In addition, we have an affiliation with the Brookwood mobile home community, and we are going to be paying for people's moves to go over to Brookwood if that's what they want to do. So there's other property owners that are paying to relocate people, and you know, we'll just do whatever we have to do to accommodate people. We'll go meet with them and deal with their situation on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Any other questions, commissioners? No, I just, I think that what we have before us is an improvement over what we have now, both in the terms of city infrastructure as well as the connectivity to our walking and biking paths, and I appreciate that, and anxious to move forward with this. Motion?
You want to do them individually, Mayor?
Yeah, it's probably a mouthful otherwise.
And I do share all of your comments. I think the applicant here has done a very good job of trying to meet every one of the development plans and requirements that we have in place. So I want to thank everybody who is involved with this. Mr. Horner, I want to thank you in working with the current residents in the mobile home park and just everybody involved. Dale, I want to thank you for recognizing a problem you know, that could exist, you know, with additional traffic there and not enough backup in that area. And I do think one of these days we need to have a talk about the corner of 27th and Iowa and our island there and some of the traffic that we're forcing through a restaurant there that I'm not sure really needs there, but that's probably for another night. But anyway, thank you all very much. So with that, if you're ready for a motion, Mayor,
I think
I'm happy to make.
And I think we can probably wrap it up together.
Yeah, I'd make a motion then to approve the rezoning of approximately 41.15 acres located at 1900 West 31st Street and adopt on first reading ordinance number 8705.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Okay.
So that was
Mayor, that was with the added
That's with the additional.
With the additional
condition.
condition.
Okay. And then I would make a motion to approve
Preliminary plat.
the, let's see, is this just an acceptance of dedication and easements? Okay. We'll make a motion that we accept the dedications and easements of the preliminary plat and variance request for Aspen Heights addition.
Motion made by Commissioner Amick, seconded Vice Mayor Shum, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
And then I-
And C.
And then I would make a motion to approve the special use permit for Aspen Heights addition located at 1900 West 31st Street, and approve on first reading ordinance number 8706, subject to all the conditions that were listed in the staff report, with the addition of, what was it, G?
G, and then actually H was the access issue.
Okay. And that addition.
Motion made by Commissioner Amick, seconded by Vice Mayor Shum, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you
Very
all.
good. Thank you. Thank you for coming down. Good to meet you. Next up,
Did you want to go to public comment? We have some people, we're going to be just a few minutes, I don't know. Doesn't matter.
we'll hit it back.
Okay.
At this time, I'd like to consider a motion to recess into executive session for 15 minutes for the purpose of discussion of personnel matters.
Second.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Shum, seconded by Commissioner Dever. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We'll be back in 15 minutes.
You just here for public.
In the past, I've worked with Depot Redux, and I strongly support the city's purchase and restoration of the train station, and increased passenger rail as well at the Amtrak BNSF station. I'm also a strong believer in good, safe public transportation and have always relied on buses, subways, trams, and train services when I travel. I would love to see Lawrence have a strong bus hub transit station developed that would support our downtown and our bus system. However, putting a bus transit hub at the train station has problems for a number of reasons. These include negative impact on neighborhood property values, no services in the immediate vicinity of the station. The station is a 7-minute walk to downtown Lawrence. Increased traffic and congestion for nearby businesses and residences, reduction in available parking spaces for local businesses and Amtrak passengers, potential loss of historic green space, increased foot traffic, putting neighbors at risk for increased crime, increased diesel particulate matter and noise will be unhealthy. Literature suggests newer buses put out PM 2.5, a smaller diesel particulate matter associated with increased risk of heart attack and stroke after 2 hours of exposure. A bus hub at this location would exacerbate the problems of homelessness along the riverfront and at the Amtrak station. There has been no proper site selection process for transit hub. Many people are saying that only this site is being proposed because Doug Compton wants buses moved away from his new development. I'm saying this is what people are saying. Others have said that this site was selected without a proper evaluation because a transit hub might make more federal funds available for restoration of the historic station. A good transit hub, transfer station, intercity bus station will increase commercial development and provide a system that everybody will want to use. There are multiple sites in downtown Lawrence that might be ideal candidates for this type of use. Why not support downtown merchants rather than pushing commercial development into a residential neighborhood? Considering the number of commercial vacancies downtown, why locate a transportation hub away from downtown? Again, there has been no site selection process. If this is federally funded, the project will have to meet environmental justice guidelines. Those guidelines say that it must avoid, minimize, or mitigate disproportionately high adverse human health and environmental effects, including social and economic effects on minority populations and/or low-income populations. The city must utilize federal guidelines for identifying ideal sites for transit-oriented development. If a project is to meet environmental justice guidelines and if a future environmental impact statement is to pass muster, federal agencies will expect a thorough and meticulous site selection process has been carried out. And no, the selection process cannot consist of a member of the public thought this was a good idea and the transit administrator said, I might be able to make it work. There is no evidence that a site selection has been processed, has been used, and the end result is mostly suggestions made by people with very specific preconceived agendas. I have tons of literature on the economic and commercial impact of developing a good transit hub, which I totally support. The train station is not the place. I prepared a package that contains my statement. I also have a statement from Mike Murphy, who owns the corner business right across from the train station, which I would be glad to read. And I have a statement from Jim Transu, who lives on the other side across from the station. I don't know whether you want me to take the time to read those or not.
You have about 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Well, it won't work. I do have those statements for you, and I can tell you they aren't happy about it.
Thank you much. And you feel free to submit in writing, and we'll receive all that material. Thank you. Further public comment? Future agenda items.
you see the memo, and we'll be probably adding a few more things for next week.
Good. Commission items? Calendar. You mentioned a reminder about the Boys and Girls Club on Thursday,
That's right. If anybody can make it, that'd be great.
6:30 at the Lead Center, Youth of the Year.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All